Right, this is just another beginning of June garden update. Remember that morning dove I told you was sitting up there in her nest? Well, there's two nice young babies in there starting to grow up, and pretty soon they'll be flying away. That kale that's right down under where the nest is there, my wife's been really using a lot of that. I got just cut some leaves off, and somehow they just keep growing back, and really amazing how this stuff survived all that really cold weather and snow and everything else, and still turned out being really good looking. The cold weather actually seemed to help keep it from getting bug eaten too, so they're out picking little kale this morning here, and the radishes are starting to grow there. This was like 2 weeks ago. Now they're just about gone, but I'd go out every morning and just thin out a couple of them and have a nice little handful of fresh radishes for lunch. And they, bug free too. I guess all that cold weather really did help. And using up some more of those heads of lettuce. This actually, I must say, is the best lettuce we've ever had. I can't believe it made it through the 20-degree temperatures. It was buried in snow a couple times, and I never covered it or anything, and it just did amazing, and that cold weather really helped it. But now it's turned, this week here that I'm showing you, it turned in, it was extremely hot and humid for a week that we had. Actually had the air conditioning on in the house. But you can see that lettuce is really just really tasty, super crisp and tasty. We really have been enjoying it, making a lot of salads out of it. So back down to the raised bed area, and I'm working on putting new beds along the back side there, where originally I was going to put a greenhouse, but decided to expand the beds instead. And here I'm using all the wood from that fence that I took down up above there, trying to recycle it all, and just screwing things together using some of those Craig screws that I've got. So just a slow, tedious process, cutting away. Here I'm just cutting off the end of that one side bed so I can tie into it. And I have to tell you, this week was just so hot I could work outside for about an hour, and then I'd be inside in the air conditioning cooling down for an hour. It was just crazy. With the water pills I take, if I stay out more than an hour, I start getting dizzy, so I've got to go in. But anyhow, I worked on that for a while and just decided to use some Craig screws to build up the layers of it. I didn't have any long screws to go all the way down through, so figured I'd use some Craig screws, and probably not the best application for them because of the way the pockets are facing down. But they'll last. They should outlast me, I think. And all this is like 15-year-old pressure-treated wood, so. And there I am starting to build up a second layer across those boards I put down there. And you can see I'm just using Craig screws. Real easy to put the boards together like that. And just to make the beds deep enough for the tomatoes. And it was real nice having all that leftover wood from that fence that I took down to build these, so I didn't have to, go out to Home Depot or anywhere like that. So you see I'm starting to build up the beds on that other side there too. Now all this will be faced off with the boards like I did around that tarp enclosure thing. So that's all going to be covered up in the end, and I'll put some new stain on it. And I've got a ton of these little toads living in the mulch down this one aisle here in this wild cherry shavings. You have to be real careful that you don't step on them because you just see their noses sticking out. They're kind of hiding there waiting for bugs, but I've never seen so many little toads in the garden as I am this year. And these are those Craig screws I'm using to put the stuff together. They're weatherproof and they last good outside. And then across that end, I used to have the gravel with the 6mm poly under it. So, of course, I've got to pull all that out of the boxes as I build up the new boxes and clean out all the gravel. Get that all ready to start putting dirt in. And I'm going to put in about, 5-6 inches of topsoil compost mix that I had that came out of other boxes. And then I'm just going to go back and put another 6 inches of that new compost that I had gotten in that second load in the last video. There it is. I threw in some of the the garden soil there, with just basically the old compost topsoil mix. Gonna spread that out a little bit. And then this is that new load of compost that I had gotten, that second load. Finishing that up over here in these beds now. So you can see I'm just throwing like about 6 inches of that up on top of the topsoil to finish it all off. So I'm starting to work through the beds a little bit at a time, and this one here actually at the end of the row there had all kinds of rocks I had to dig out. It was just leftover rocks, but I got them out, threw some dirt in there, and same thing with the compost to finish it off. Then as I finished the beds off, I went through with some of the tomato stakes, and you can see I'm really putting them quite close together in here. I'm going to try crowding them in. I've done this in the past, and I've had good luck with it, but we'll find out. And these are those stakes that I cut a couple years ago. I made that video about, and I'm surprised how well these ash stakes really are holding up. All of them are still in really good condition, and I think this is the 4th year I've used them. So I'm getting some beds prepared, and then I'm starting to head up the other side here of the beds and adding another 6 inches on top of the existing beds there. You can see same thing. I'm just using some Craig screws and screwing into the existing lumber that was there, and just building them up so I can get a little more compost and topsoil in there, because they've never really been deep enough. Nope. Almost fell over there. So then, these are the old beds, and they had a good topsoil compost mix, so I'm just gonna loosen that up a little bit down there, and then just go back and fill over them with a good load of compost. So this, by expanding these beds around here, it's really will give me a lot more gardening space and stuff. Then as I get the beds done, I'm starting to plant my tomatoes now. I started them a couple weeks early, I think, and they're going out a little bit late. So the plants themselves, is, as always I say, they're spindly and stuff, but you can see they're kind of tall and spindly, and they're still healthy, but so I'm just going to take that shovel and stick the point down as far as I can. I try to get the roots down about 12 inches below the ground level. It always helps the tomatoes survive tough times. And then I'm just going to go through and fill in each one like that, and then take some pieces of string and actually tie them up to the stakes, because we've had some really terrible winds for like the past 2 weeks. So there's one bed planted, and I did throw some marigolds in there to keep the bugs down. And I'm really packing them in this year, like I said, because I did throw a couple sunflower seeds in behind them too. So I'm just going up the row here, trying to, get all the stakes in and put the tomatoes in. And like I said, it was really, really miserable hot, and then we were getting high winds and thunderstorms and stuff. So that one I hit a sinkhole. And getting everything ready. And if I tell you, this little golf cart's really been a handy thing. I wish we had gotten it years ago. We use that every day now. So I'm gonna, start planting some more tomatoes up here, and you can see I'm just trying to get them down about a foot using the tip of that shovel here, because everything's really super soft, and you can just see how tall these plants are. They just went crazy with all the extra time indoors, and they basically got very little time outside to harden them off. They only got about a week out there, so with all that crazy weather that we had. But you can see they're really overgrown, tall, and so I'm just putting them in the ground, burying them, tying up what I can, and going back and trimming off any branches that are down by the ground. And when I use this, I just use like a twine to tie them up, and make sure that I leave it extremely loose around the plant because they're going to grow a lot. So you want to make sure you don't strangle them off with the cord by tying it too tight. No, there goes some of the extra branches. I just put all those weight cups away, and I'll get another year out of them. I just can't believe how long they actually have lasted. So I'm just working my way up and just doing batches of 5 different plants in each one of these boxes. And then I do have another area up above that I'm putting the leftovers. The plants really, they are healthy. Just a little spindly looking, like from, just not really getting enough sunshine in the end. But we did have a lot of crazy weather. This is always a fun part, getting them in the ground, and the conditions are never perfect when you put them in. It seems like it would have been nice to have a couple cloudy, rainy days when I put these in, but nothing but heat and wind. So I do get them all in though. And then here in the middle of the afternoon, it just got miserable when that sun really came out. And I'm still out there working on the beds. And there's another bed. There's another little toad I dug up when I turned over the bed there. And then I put the compost in. You can see he buried himself with just his head sticking out there. And then it got too hot to be outside, so I went over, picked some lettuce, went inside. You can see we finally got some of that red lettuce here too, which is really flavorful and tasty. And still, as you can see from all that cold weather, just not a bug in sight, not a bug bite in it or any waste at all on it. So after my break inside and a quick salad, back outside for a little while longer to do another batch of plants. And at the spacing here that I'm putting them at, you can see I'm really going to have to keep an eye on them and do a lot of pruning and trimming and stuff. But I just want to, see how I make out with them this close together. And actually, this here was a little over a week ago, and now the plants are really doing great. I'll show you some newer pictures of them in a little while. And that big long spade really does help to get the plants down in there. And I found by just pushing it in and wiggling it, I can get the plants down without making a big mess. So that worked out good. So pretty soon I had all the tomatoes done and in. I did have a dozen left over that I put up in another area. And there you can see Mama Bird. She chased the babies out. And there they are. I made them on the grill one day for lunch. No, actually, there's another batch of chicken wings and, another salad to go with them and stuff. So we've been, really enjoying that early stuff. But the baby doves did take off and start flying. I'll show you a picture of Mama out there watching them. And then I got all the compost out of the trailer, and I went over and I got, this is 2 cubic yards of pea gravel I decided I'm going to redo that one side with all pea gravel and 6 mil poly because the gravel is less than half the price of the actual trying to find mulch, and it'll last forever, so decided I might as well do that. And I actually found a rain gauge on Amazon that I picked up. Just for the heck of it, I wanted one out there. It's a cheap one, and you do have to mount it so you can remove it to dump it. But, it'll give me an idea of how much rain we get this summer, too. So I just put it on a tomato stake. And then the eggplants, as always, have been getting eaten up by those little flea beetles and stuff. And somebody told me try a banana in a bucket of water, and I would catch them, but that didn't work at all. So I had to get out the neem oil and been using that, and that's actually as long as you get it on after the rain, it really does help. And you can see this is a little Japanese maple that we planted like 14 years ago with a little stick we put in the ground, and now it's just gorgeous. It's just really humongous, and all the flowers up by the house are starting to do good now too. And those are those little fig plants that I put in last year. You can see they're just starting to come back to life now. I think I'll wait another year to put them out. And then those ground cherries that I put in last year, they have gone nuts and come back with a vengeance. They're actually growing underneath the edge of that box and stuff, so I don't know how I'm going to, keep them under control. Then we had a real good thunderstorm, and you can see a big rainbow, big double rainbow, and it ends at my garden, so I guess that means it's going to be a real good gardening year, I guess. But we did miss the hail by a couple miles, luckily. And there's Mama Bird. She's out there teaching the young ones to fly. And here we are out in a bigger garden. I'm getting ready to put some zucchinis in. And actually, you can see those tracks where I tried driving across it with my tractor and got stuck. It's still all mud. Still hasn't dried up or anything. So this year, instead of tilling it all up, I'm just going to take the pitchfork and turn over the areas where I want to put the seeds in and just leave it at that, and I'll just mulch over everything else. You can see it's got a good layer of, I had like 6 inches of grass mulch on last year, and then I put another 6 inches of leaves last fall when I collected them, so it does have a, good layer of compost on it. And I'm down to my last couple buckets of compost. I figured I'd spread some around these little poles for the zucchini here just to keep the seeds up out of the mud. So I decided to put them, up out of the way, and then I've got this one compost bin that I put together for the overflow last year, and gonna pull out a part and use what I can and put the rest in another compost bin. So you can see I still got a lot of cleanup that I should have done earlier in the season, but with all the cold and wind and snow, I couldn't. Then we did get a couple cool days after that heat wave, and I started spreading the gravel out here. I went back over the old section that's already had gravel in like 6 mil poly, and I threw a couple more inches on top of that and spread it all out. Figured I'd build everything up to about an even level. So that's another slow process, slow job, because I had to do it with a wheelbarrow and stuff. You really can't get the loader in here or anything. And in between all those beds, these are like the new beds I put in last year, and I never really got them mulched between them or anything, so I'm going back now, and I had to dig out all the weeds and get them out. Now I'm trying to cut pieces of 6 mil polyethylene to put down under the plastic, under the gravel, I mean. And what I do is I just, just cutting it around the bins to get a nice tight fit, a couple inches up the bins, and then I'll put 4 inches of gravel on here. And then what I do is I go back with a pitchfork and I poke some small holes so you don't get any puddles built up in low spots or anything. I don't put a lot of holes in, but it does, just a little bit for drainage here and there after the low spot. There's a lot of, it takes a while to do this, and down on your hands and knees and stuff. Man, you can see pretty much all the time. It's like windy up here all the time anymore, it seems like. Plants have really been taking a pretty good beating with the wind. I've been watering them like twice a day to keep them from drying out and stuff. So there's my carrots just taking off. There's my beets just getting going there. And then back out next day out to the main garden, and I'm gonna throw another row of yellow squash and the rib zucchinis and a couple more zucchinis to finish it off out there, because we really love those dehydrated ones that I started making last year. And then I'm doing the same thing with the butternuts this year. I'm not gonna till the garden. I'm just gonna drive some stakes in and put a hill around each stake. I'm cutting back on the number of them too. And you can see pretty much, everything's starting to grow, and the wind is really taking its toll on ripping leaves off the eggplants and stuff. And I'm slowly but surely, a little bit at a time, trying to get the gravel, the old mulch scraped out and the gravel in there to replace it. And these are my asparagus. Last couple of years we've had these weeds growing up in them, and this year they completely choked them off. and I'm going to have to turn to chemicals, I think, to get rid of them. They've got this root system about 18 inches underground, and there's no way to get rid of them. I tried vinegar on them and stuff last year, and they'd kill the greens, and then a couple days later, they're coming back with a vengeance because the roots are so deep down. So I'm going to have to replant the asparagus after I get rid of them. And then it's back up to the butternut squash and a couple pumpkins. You can see it's all really muddy up there still. A ton of worms, though. I've never seen so many worms in my life. Each forkful had like 10, 15 worms in it. So I really do like that leaf mulch and stuff. The same thing around these poles. I'm just going to throw a little bit of compost. And then what I did is I put one sunflower seed right on the pole there. And then I put a couple pole bean seeds there. And they're just sacrificial pretty much for hopefully to attract the Japanese beetles if they come. Because they really like pole beans. And then I'm just going to throw a couple butternut seeds in around the base there. Spread out a little bit further like that. So that's all I'm going to do, and I'll go back and start mulching with grass as soon as I get the time to. Now I'm really taking a shortcut this year. And here we are one night. You can see there's 4 deer there. We've got a dozen deer living at the bottom of the hill by our pond, and they usually come up the other side of our property, but for some reason they came up this side this night, and I got a video of them from in the house here. You can see there's 4 little ones kind of standing in the road for a while before they took off through the fresh planted corn. And usually they either travel in groups of 4 or like the whole dozen of them comes out on the other side of our house at night too. So we've been lucky so far that Milorganite has kept them away from the garden, I think. Hoping that holds out for the year and they don't start liking it ever. But there they are going off through the corn. They'll be eating a lot of corn over there anyway, and hopefully leave our garden alone. Then I've got that building there next to the garden, and trying to work my way over there to get that all cleaned up and stuff. And there was an old pressure-treated walkway getting into it, and I'm replacing all that with gravel and stuff now. So you can see I've pretty much got the butternuts and some pumpkins up there, and then I've got some bunch of zucchinis and yellow squash and rib zucchinis down there, and then I got another bin here with gourds and some more sunflowers. And then going into the garden, you can see these are all the first couple bins are all the eggplants, and the neem oil is actually working to keep the bugs under control. And there's peppers all the way down there then heading down there, and pretty much I still got this one walkway with the mulch on it, and the rest of it's all going to be gravel when I get done. And you can see how the tomato plants are really actually starting to perk up now, and really starting to look good, and the marigolds are starting to put some flowers on there, and I got the little snowball, or little bright orange snowball sunflowers planted behind them too. And it still needs a lot of work here. In the next video I should be finishing everything up, but I just thought I'd do an update at this point, and this is just like a top view of it that I had shown a while ago, but I put it in there and just to go back through some of this stuff. This is the kale, and it's just been fantastic. The kale and this lettuce that survived that frigid temperature really did good because there were no bugs. And this is basically the raised bed area over there, and these are all the new beds that I really like. These beds, they really are the right size, and they're doing a good job. And you see the eggplants had a lot of leaves actually blown off from the wind. And the garlic just loves any kind of weather. Doesn't matter what it is, it does good. Peppers are really starting to fill out now, and I pulled all the dead leaves off of them. And these are first batch of carrots coming up. They need a little bit of weeding, and these are the first batch of beets coming up. And again, I've been working on weeding them out and stuff. The edamame soybeans, they're all doing good now, coming up. And the okra actually some of it did germinate, so soaking it in water really did make a difference. And there you can see I've got some little baby green peppers starting to form now, so those couple weeks of really hot weather really did make a difference. And then I'll just start going through some of the boxes. Like there's the shallots, they're really doing great. Need a little bit of weeding, but they're doing good, looking good. And these are the potatoes finally popping up through, and you see I really put a lot of the compost on top of them. And there's a little bit of basil and cilantro and some peppers, and beans took a beating. The birds and the bugs decided to destroy them, so I'm probably going to be replanting them. And there's some cucumbers and another bed of carrots here that started, and some more peppers and some more sacrificial pole beans there, and some melons in there. And this is my strawberry popcorn in here with some cucumbers up on the other end there. And there's my first zucchini plants getting a good start. They're taking off now, and you can see the tomatoes are all starting to fill in, and they're really starting to look good now. And some little baby Principe tomatoes on there, so it looks like they'll probably be my first tomato. And everything's starting to come together now, and still have a lot of work to do to get it all cleaned up the rest of the way. But I just thought I'd stop here and show you what I'm up to now, and you can see where that rainbow ended up. So I think it's going to be a great season this year. My wife's been baking and freezing rhubarb bread to get that in the freezer for this winter, so she's been busy with a lot of that lately. Hopefully I'll get the English muffin recipe out soon. And again, this is the kale a week after, and you can see it's really gone crazy now. That blue kale has just been wonderful, and not a bug on it, so it's a really good year for it. And our next batch of lettuce is just about ready to start picking now, once we get rid of the last couple of heads. And this is our overflow area where we have the extra tomato plants. They don't look so good, but hopefully they'll pick up because they sat out in the wind for too long, I think. And those are the last two heads of lettuce. Bugs are getting them now, though, with the heat. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.